All right. If you are a financial advisor or life insurance agent and you are looking to up your virtual advising game, you'd like the opportunity to do more business virtually around the world, not limited to your local area. If you haven't already figured it out, coming out of the pandemic, how to optimize the ability to do virtual meetings, you're going to want to stick around for this three-part series. This is part one. And today we're going to highlight that on the Digital Advisor Weekly. All right, my name is Rob Souza with Advisor Marketing Hub, trying to help you create all things automated, digital marketing that is automated just for you. And we are each week with the Digital Advisor Weekly trying to give you all of the tips and knowledge that we've learned over the last decade and making them available to you so you can up your game every Wednesday, 8 a.m. So, and that's Pacific. If you're on the East Coast, 11 o'clock. And this week, we're talking about virtual meetings, how to optimize your setup, the ability to do effective and authentic virtual meetings so that you can connect with prospects and convert them into clients. So I'm actually going to play you a part of a masterclass that I already have created and made available on our platform, but I want to share that with you today. So yes, we're doing a video within a video. And before we get started, I just want to mention, if wherever you're coming from, I encourage you to put your location of where you're coming from, or if you're working for an advisor, where's your advisor from? Post those in the comments, and we're going to be actively involved in monitoring the chat and answering all of your questions throughout today's presentation. So let's get started. All right, so Sounds like we're on two of our platforms don't have sound, so we've got to check sound. Make sure we're not going to run an entire video, of course, if we can't, if you guys can't hear the sound. So we're going to try this again, see if we can get this running. Make sure that you guys can hear this presentation. So give us 1 second here. This is all part of going live. We're going to see share. Okay. We're going to try. Let's see if this will work. I think we've figured it out. Let's go ahead. Let's give this a try. We'll restart the beginning. You guys give me a thumbs up if you can hear the sound. Again, this was a 3-part video series we did for white glove workshops and helping advisors follow up to webinars using optimizing digital virtual meetings. And so let's give this a try. Give me a thumbs up if we can hear sound on this.
My name is Rob Souza, and I'd like to welcome you to part 1 of a 3-part series entitled Virtual Appointments Masterclass. As a follow-up to webinars, you obviously have to use Zoom and other virtual meeting platforms to be able to follow up with those prospects that attended the webinar and that are interested in learning more from you and about your business and what you can do to help. So let's take a look at part 1, which really is 9 steps to setting up or being prepared for your ideal virtual appointment. So part 1, as we set up, you got to be looking at things like the technical side of what does your background look like, virtual versus actual background, your camera, lighting, audio, clothing, what to wear to not be distracting but still authentic, whether you sit or you stand. Make sure that we're going to help you prepare to do your homework about the particular prospect that you're going to be meeting with, and make sure you take the time to get prepared. So let's get ready and let's go. Step 1, keep your background and environment simple. And now you may see that my background is an event banner, a little bit more intricate, but when it comes to actual virtual appointments with prospects, you do want to keep it simple and relatable and authentic. If it looks like you're trying too hard, then of course it naturally creates some skepticism from the particular client that you may be trying to connect with. And that's really the premise of today, is teaching you how to get prepared to be as authentic as you possibly can and make it easy for them to connect. They want you to be relatable. And so in that regard, it's better to have a natural background, whether if it's your office, your home. They want to see that you're a real person in a real environment. And it is preferable to do a natural background versus the virtual. Now, you may not have a choice. If you don't have a choice, that's okay. Then your next best bet is that green screen with the virtual background. But again, we can look at statistics and research studies. Just Google it and you'll see that when you're actually doing follow-up meetings to a formal presentation, you want an informal background that makes you relatable to the audience that you're trying to connect with. So keep it clutter-free. Reason for that is we want to make sure that you keep the focus on you in the conversation, your facial expressions, so that they can again relate and focus on you. They don't want to be leaning in and looking at book titles or anything in the background that may distract them from focusing on what you are saying or you're asking them about themselves. Okay. Part 2, cameras. And I don't want people to get overwhelmed by the tech part of doing virtual meetings, but you do have to invest a little bit of time, just a little bit of money, to make sure that you have a setup that can accomplish, again, going back to the common theme of creating authentic connection. You do have a bit of a challenge when you're doing virtual appointments because you have a screen in between the two of you. And that naturally goes against human nature, where we really do want to touch, feel, and experience people and relationships in person And when we get down to doing virtual meetings, a lot of that becomes a challenge. And that's why setup and preparation is so extremely important, and why we're taking the first video to focus just on that. But a camera makes all the difference for a couple of reasons. One, you want people to be able to clearly see you, your facial expressions, the subtleties. And so choosing an external camera versus internal is going to come down to a couple of things. When you're looking at cameras, pros and cons is a built-in camera is going to save you money. It's a lot more simple. So if you're intimidated by technology and you just want kind of an out-of-box laptop or computer that has a built-in camera, and you don't want to get overwhelmed with tech issues and problem solving, then you're probably better off with a built-in camera, and then you can make up for it in other ways, which I'll go over in this particular class. An external camera, of course, is going to have a potentially much higher resolution, which is, of course, always better. And you can adjust zooming in, zooming out, a wider field or a narrower field. So it makes it easier to adapt to different environments, whether you're in a small office or a corner or wherever else. You have more options with the external camera. Make sure if you do choose an external camera that you have a computer that has the memory to be able to handle the extra processing power that's going to be needed for an external camera with those additional features. I say, if you have any doubt whatsoever, I encourage you to use your built-in camera just for the sake of simplicity. And I'll go over how you can compensate for that in a few minutes as I get to that. And then again, external, better flexibility, we talked about that, but let's move on. Keep it simple, do what you can, work with what you have. If you do want to invest, I can make a few recommendations, but bottom line is, no matter what I recommend, prices change, products change, the recommendations change. So make sure you do your own Google search. And that's why I list at the bottom here, if you can see, search on Amazon.com for USB camera, and you can look at the different reviews. I would consider that you look at how many reviews and the rating of those reviews, and read some of those reviews so that you can see the pros and cons, the things people like and don't like about that particular piece of software. I like this camera, and I have an exact replica of this camera. It can be clipped onto an existing laptop or computer, so it looks like you're looking exactly into the camera, which is really, really helpful. And again, resolution is everything. Most built-in cameras, if you're not, if you haven't purchased the latest laptop or computer, is probably going to be in 720. It's a pixel rating, means it's going to be the resolution or how clear the picture is for you. And then external cameras are typically going to be, they're going to have a higher resolution. This particular camera here, the webcam, FHD USB webcam, comes with its own software, is going to give you a little bit better resolution, some other functions. So it's entirely up to personal preference. Again, I say keep it simple. If you have any doubt, go with what you have. All right. So I like this picture here in this particular slide because this is what we looked like when we started at the beginning of the pandemic, trying to lift up laptops to our eye level and get some sort of a lighting. I wish I had taken a picture. I mean, we had household lamps and garage lights, and took a stack of client files to lift the laptop up so it could be at eye level. But at the end of the day, it may have looked funny if you were in the room, but the reality is, if you were just a viewer on the other side of the camera, you had no idea. And that's the whole point. Work with what you have. You just want to keep it authentic. And so here's the picture on the right here is a good example of somebody making the best of what they have. Okay, and then you can do a laptop stand if you want to get really, they're inexpensive, you know, $30, and then you can adjust your laptop rather than going and grabbing books. You can adjust your laptop to the level of surface and the whatever seat you're sitting on. But most importantly, make sure that it's at eye level. So I always say test, test, test. I probably spent 40 minutes preparing even for this video because I'm dealing, the sun is starting to go down. I'm in a different room. And so you do need to log on well before your meeting and just test how well does it look and make any necessary last minute adjustments. That's part of the preparation process. People take this for granted, but these things do make a huge difference, especially from a credibility standpoint. I know a lot of advisors, they want to write books or run a podcast, but at the end of the day, even how you present on a virtual meeting does make a difference. If you're dressed down, you're slouching, the camera's looking up your nose, there's a haze in the background from a video, from a window, it does give the impression that you didn't take the extra time to do the best you could do with what you have. And I think that's the impression that people want, is that you and your business, you take it serious enough to invest into the experience. And making the experience better means that you take your business that much more serious. Every little detail makes a difference on your branding. It gives them an impression of who you are and how committed you are to this process. And I think if you're going to do virtual advisor appointments, you've got to pay attention to every single detail to enhance the first impression that you're making on the prospects that you're meeting with. So when it comes to lighting, of course, there are so many different ways to do lighting. And I even today, I'm using one of my lights. It's a $9.99 garage light. And it doesn't matter what the lighting is or how much you paid for it. The bottom line is, does it look good so that you can look directly in the camera at the prospect and they can see every facial expression? So we're going to talk about what types of lighting. There's front lighting, of course. That's important. Many people use ring lights. There's other things you can use. My favorite's sitting in front of a window. Get rid of all the background and side windows and sit in front of a dampened front window where it's facing you. You can, if it's too bright, it's reflecting. Like I have glasses on. I think if I can lift my glasses up, you can see a reflection in my glasses. That's because I put a sheer curtain across my window, but I left the top part of the window open so I would eliminate the reflection off the glasses. Okay, so that's front lighting. You want to make sure that you have enough front lighting on your face for facial expressions. Side lighting. Side lighting is important because if you have too much lighting all the way around and everything is too well lit, it just seems too studio quality. It seems too inauthentic, that you're not in a natural environment, because none of us are in an environment where we have lighting from every single direction. So studies show, again, go ahead and Google it, that when you have some level of shadows, that it does show that you're in a real environment that isn't perfectly lit 360 degrees around. Okay. And then backlight, and I think you can see in my picture, maybe not as well today as the lighting's changing as we do this, that this side is shadowed and we lit this side of my face a little bit more than we do the other side to create some shadows. You can see, again, this side of the backdrop is darker, this side is lighter. We're just doing some side lighting. Okay. And then backlighting, of course, you do want lighting behind you. And the reason for it is because otherwise the camera has a hard time adjusting to depth and focus. And so you want to make sure that the lighting behind you will light up your backdrop just well enough to make sure there aren't any focusing issues for the camera, especially if you're using a green screen or a virtual background. You want that separated lighting on the backdrop, even if it's a green screen, so the camera can tell the difference between you, what you're wearing, and the backdrop. And then finally, turn off your overhead lighting, because that will wash things out and you'll end up getting a halo on your head and your forehead, and you want to eliminate that as much as possible. Okay. So types of lights, my favorite, and I have recommended this to hundreds of advisors who are just as happy as I am, and that's the UB's portable lighting that you can get on UB size, UBs, I don't know. But you can see down below, you can search Amazon for it's UBEESIZE video light kit. Most versatile kit with colored gels to help you control both front lighting and back lighting. I have one with a blue lens behind me and one in front of me with a half white, half yellow lens to it. Okay, these are really inexpensive. These are side lights, and it's just a clip on the table, on the laptop that just lights. Like to eliminate the shadow of this microphone onto my chest, I have a side light that is getting rid of those shadows. Then again, really inexpensive backlighting. Those are garage work clamp lights, and those are great for backlighting. So some quick hacks on how to save money and yet still get the same effect that you want. Here's a good example. You can see the good lighting versus bad lighting example, and it's about eliminating the shadows that matter. What matters? Your eyes and your mouth, because they want to be able to see your expressions and how you react. They want to know if you're listening. They want to know if you're paying attention. They want to know if you're distracted. And all of that does make a subconscious impression on the person that you're meeting with. So take a snapshot of, even with your phone, take your phone, take a snapshot of how it looks. Ask others, what do you think? How do you like that lighting? Once you get it down, you'll have a setup that works and you can use it every time. Okay. The other thing is audio. And the first most helpful thing to do, and I can only speak from my experience of Zoom simply because, and I know many have other platforms that they use. The reason that I use Zoom is because two reasons. One, they have the highest encryption for mainstream virtual calls. For security purposes, that's important. People know Zoom, so they're familiar with it and less intimidated. And finally, they have more settings to help you adjust your environment than any other platform that's out there today. So again, when it comes to audio, click on settings, click on audio, make sure that you click that box that says automatically adjust your microphone volume, but more importantly, suppress the background noise. And I do it high so I can eliminate, I'm in a home studio right now, so I'm eliminating the noise of gardeners, trash trucks. I have 2 dogs at home, and I have kids and my wife teaching Zoom classes to her students at the moment. And hopefully, if I've done it correctly, you're not hearing any of that going on right now. The other is a software you can download, especially if you're not using Zoom, and that's Crisp. For the most part, it's free. It gives you some limited hours and function, but it's inexpensive and priceless to me because I think it's $12 or something like that. Covers all of my Zoom meetings and classes, but it will also learn your voice and then cut out all the background noise that isn't your voice, in addition to the Zoom software. So when you use both in conjunction, it almost eliminates everything and is very, very helpful. That way you don't have to be apologizing when a dog is barking and you can't hear each other. All right, back to audio. Do we do a podcast microphone? Do we do, well, that's going to be more microphone. We'll talk about that in a second. Audio, though, Zoom does a really good job of making sure that whatever audio is coming out of the computer doesn't circle back into the microphone, but you can also do that with a headset or Bluetooth earphones. My encouragement to you, I'm sure you guys have seen this on television, different people putting, iPod, or excuse me, the AirPod, Bluetooth, or a headset. Now, it looks better if you're doing the Bluetooth AirPod, but you have one more element that you have to worry about, and it does the battery run out in the middle of your meeting, and create a distraction and inconvenience. And so I tend to prefer to eliminate Bluetooth if I can. Headsets don't look quite as good in the first impressions, but they are more reliable. So if you're struggling with reliability and you just want to be confident, you're going to be able to communicate clearly and hear clearly what's being said. The plug-in version is a really good option. Again, both under $40, super simple. Okay, now we're talking about audio going the other direction. That's our microphones. And you really have two options. If you want to be, which I tend to do, if you want to be more natural and authentic, I encourage you to get a clip-on or a lavalier microphone that you can put onto either your vest or your tie, and it's as close to your mouth as possible so that it'll just pick up the audio that's within a short range of that particular microphone. And you can see this one is a plug-in one. Again, they have Bluetooth. This one's a plug-in one, but for $13 to be guaranteed you're not going to run into problems because it's plugged into your audio jack or your microphone jack is a really great, reliable option you can be confident with, and gets rid of the formalization of like a podcast microphone. That's what I have today. A lot of people like using that because it's set up, it's built into their environment, it's plugged into their computer, it's always ready to go. And it does tend to have a little bit better quality of picking up your voice, learning your voice. A lot of these condenser microphones will also eliminate the background noise while enhancing the noise that's with it, or the vocals within a short distance of the microphone. So again, if you want to keep it simple, do a plug-in lavalier. If you're looking for higher quality, and then feel free, you can do a podcast microphone, which definitely has higher quality. Okay, clothing. We're like halfway there. Hang in there with us. Now, the best colors to wear on Zoom, you can see it in the picture. It's going to be blue. It's going to be a bright solid, and solids is what I'm really trying to help people understand. Now, yes, I say avoid white, avoid black. There's a couple of reasons for that, is because white tends to reflect too much. I break that up. I am wearing white, but I do have a solid dark background, and I'm breaking that up with a vest and a tie. I'm using that solid bright color as my tie, with a more muted, broken up color that will break up the reflection of the white. Again, what you decide to wear, I think, is important that you be authentic. Wear what you normally wear if you meet a client for the first time. Just stick to non-black, non-white, solid colors that are a standout from your background. You don't want to have anything that you're wearing that will bleed or blend into the background, so that, again, it creates any sort of confusion, especially if you're using a green screen. Now, one thing that I want to remind everybody of that's been a challenge for everyone, including myself when I first doing virtual meetings, is you need to avoid complex patterns. So pinstripes or very small checkered pattern shirts can put off a reflective image that starts to distort on you, and it's really distracting if you're trying to meet with someone, because it just looks like their shirt is iridescent and glowing and moving, and it's just very distracting. So avoid pinstripes and checkered patterns. Solid colors or background are best for the background. And then also just make sure that you have a contrast. Again, especially if you're using virtual backgrounds like a green screen, make sure you don't wear whatever the color of the background is. And yeah, I am taking a risk here. I'm wearing navy blue on a royal blue background, but I've highlighted it with a white shirt to try and eliminate that. Play with it, see what you prefer, go with your instinct. If you're not comfortable, go with something else. Okay, sit or stand. Now, I've done both. Depends when I'm typically doing an interactive class or an interactive meeting, I tend to prefer to stand because it's just more natural for me. I can move. I use my hands a lot, and I tend to do better when I'm standing. But you may have hours of meetings, and so it may not be possible to stand the entire time. Make sure that, of course, the camera is at eye level. But if you do decide to sit, just make sure it's comfortable. Make sure you've rehearsed your posture. I even bought a posture undershirt that reminds me to subconsciously pull back my shoulders and not slouch as you talk to someone, because it does help, again, with first impression of confidence. And so you want to be aware of that. The other thing is, make sure that you don't sit in a chair that is a high back chair that rises above your shoulders. Not only will it create complications for you on a virtual background, but it's also distracting because they want to be looking and paying attention to you, not some middle piece of furniture between you and your background, and the camera gets confused. Okay. 7, we're almost there. 3 more to go. Do your homework. And what I mean by this, and I would say that this is more important than anything I've shared with you prior to step 7. As long as you have a camera that works with some sort of lighting that they can see your face, I'd rather you focus on this than anything else I've covered so far in this particular video. And that is, do your homework about your prospect. Learn as much as you can about your prospect, because it demonstrates that you actually care about them as an individual and not as a transactional sale. They want to know that you want to help them more than just with financial services, but that you have a higher purpose, a higher calling, and that you're going to champion a cause that they're struggling with and looking for somebody to lead them into a solution. And so this really matters about in the virtual world, that you care about them, because you may be a state or a country away from them, and they need to know that you're going to actually make a priority of taking care of them, their family, and the details of their family. A couple ways to do that. When you do your virtual presentation, make sure you have somebody on the Zoom call who's taking notes about particular comments, what people say, who's on camera, who's not on camera, what do they look like on camera, did their spouse join them? All of those details matter when you do that first virtual follow-up call. For instance, yeah, I remember you were sitting there with your husband, and we got to hear from your adorable Chihuahua. That stuff means when you mention those things to them, it says, wow, you noticed me. You remembered me. And that makes a huge difference. So I don't care if you pay your 18-year-old son or daughter to make notes about that call, or go back through the video and make notes. You want to know as much as possible. You also can do research online. You can go to any social media platforms that they may have. If you find them on LinkedIn, there's an amazing tool called Crystal Knows. And one of the most valuable softwares I use, because what it does is it takes everything they've ever posted, everything they've put on their social profile, all the interactions that they've done, which is kind of scary, and then it identifies what personality type they are. And then you can actually have Crystal Knows send you a report on all the things to avoid and all of the things you should lean into based on their personality, that will help you improve your connection with them. And I'm telling you, it will double your connection or conversion rate by taking the time to study who they are and how best to communicate to them, rather than communicating the same way to every person. So it's important that you're going to have to take time. This may take you 45 minutes to an hour in advance as you prepare for the virtual call. But remember, how much have you paid to get them to a virtual event, then get them to an appointment, and then get them to show up to the appointment. So if you can get through all of that, you've probably spent close to $1,000 for this moment. Why would you not take an hour to prepare for it? Because the preparation that you do, I'm telling you, I've seen people, 5x their conversion rates because they put so much preparation into meeting number one. All right. So obviously you need enough time to gather your notes from all that research. And then it's about making a good first impression. And so start the meeting off with mentioning something that you both have in common and ask for them to share more about that particular thing with you so that you guys can connect on a common value or cause or interest. And it's a great way to start the call off so you don't jump right into talking about financial strategies. Okay. Again, that's part of the preparation. 8, give yourself enough time to be prepared. I'm not going to spend too much time on this because I just went into why it's important to prepare. But side note, you do want to prepare from a technology standpoint as well. The last thing you want is a tech issue with your microphone or your camera or any other piece of technology that you have. Log in early, test all of your tech, and make sure that it's working. Also, close all unnecessary tabs and programs. You can do a Control-Alt-Delete, which brings up a task manager. That's Control-Alt-Delete, all held down at the same time. And you can see how much memory is being used by the programs you have open, and close every program you possibly can so that your computer has all of the capability available to focus just on facilitating that meeting with that particular prospect. Check your internet speed. You can go to speedtest.org. Again, that's speedtest.org. And that will run a quick speed test and tell you how much download and how much upload speed that you have. And you want to make sure that and Zoom will tell you if it's adequate. And if it's not, you have too many people on your internet trying to do something at the same time, or you need to contact your internet service provider and see if you can get a plan that includes more data transfer so that you don't have those moments where they can't hear you or you freeze on camera because of your internet. Avoiding all of those things will make your life so much easier. So those are the checklists I'd encourage you to check before you get started. Ask a friend or a colleague. I have my assistant log in to every Zoom call and we do a tech check. They have a checklist and we check our microphone, our volume, we check our internet speed, shut things down. We go through a checklist, and while they're a participant on the other end, now that we've gotten good at it, it takes 5 minutes. You can choose, again, a friend or a family member to do it for you. They go through the checklist, give you the thumbs up, you're good to go. And then have a backup plan. One of the things that I do when I do any sort of virtual meeting, I make sure I log into the same meeting on my phone so that if my internet goes down, I can just pick up my phone and turn on my microphone and my camera on my phone, and I can finish the conversation on my phone. I've now gotten to a point where I have 2 laptops and a phone, and I log all 3 of them in because I never want to lose the opportunity of communicating during our first meeting with the first impression. And number 9, as we wrap it up, I appreciate everybody's patience. I just wanted to make sure I was thorough in helping you prepare for all of the unthinkable things that happen so that you can feel confident and focus on that particular person who's on the other side of that camera, where all your opportunity is to help them to change their life, change their future, and your business as well, to be compensated for all of those things that you so are committed to doing for them. And you want to eliminate all these unforeseeable issues that could impede your effort to be able to do that. All right. So once you've done all that prep work, you should be ready to go, and you can forget about everything else other than connecting. So bottom line, use common sense. Don't freak out. If you have all those extra pieces in place, you won't have to panic. You can pivot to a phone or another computer. You can call them on the phone if you have to. If they're having tech issues, laugh about it. If a dog comes in and they hear, you hear, laugh about it. Kids interrupt, laugh about it. And be yourself. Be authentic. Don't apologize ever for mistakes that happen, because mistakes will happen, not just on your end, but their end. And it just makes you more relatable. Tell people it's okay. It's okay that your dog interfered. It's okay if they need to call you back in 15 minutes. So again, be prepared for mistakes, use humor, be willing to laugh at yourself, and be willing to make them feel comfortable if they're having struggles as well. So that's the 9 steps of how I get prepared for virtual meetings, which is, in our business, absolutely transformed our conversion rates. But I'm telling you, it took 4 or 5 months and thousands of dollars of mistakes for us to figure these things out. And my inspiration is to just want to share them with you. If I can help you save time and money by eliminating the things that we did wrong to get to a more efficient and effective virtual advisor sales meetings, then that was the motivation for the class that I taught today.
So thank you guys, everybody, for doing well, in fact, I didn't play the end of the video that had the upsell for Digital Advisor Weekly every week. But thank you for joining us. If you do want to get notified in email reminders, you can go to digitaladvisorweekly.com and you can sign up or subscribe on the platform. You're all on different platforms, so you can subscribe on the platform that you're on to be reminded each week for that repeating event. We're going to continue to give away all of the things that we've learned so that we can help save you money by learning from our mistakes, and you can avoid them, save money, increase your effectiveness of doing business online, meeting with people online, and connecting authentically with people through the virtual format, which really is going to be the wave of the future. So I hope all of you get a chance to keep joining us each week. It's a lot of fun to get everybody's feedback and comments. I enjoy the weekly live. If you're an advisor who's thinking about doing live streaming, reach out to me. I'd love to help you do this, because this has been a really fun experiment, and I can't wait to see what we can do to help you guys transform your business. So catch us next week, Wednesday, 8 a.m., Digital Advisor Weekly. All right, a little bit late, but we are now live. If you're a life insurance agent or a financial advisor and you're looking to up your virtual sales game, this is the series for you. We are on part 2 of a 3-part series. And if you would like, again, we're going to be going over meeting number 1, sales meeting number 1 for doing virtual sales for financial advisors, life insurance agents. So as we prep here and get people connected to the live, give us 60 seconds and we'll get started with this week's episode of the Digital Advisor Weekly.
Part 2 of the 3-part series, the physical copy.
Of course, it muted me. Let's see. Let's get back here. Here we go. There we go. Okay. We're figuring this all out here. And if you would like to learn to live stream, we're going through the journey ourselves and looking for our financial advisors, as many as possible, to do it with us. Why? Because it does help you with your virtual sales so that you can do business anywhere you want in the world, and you could be traveling and still be hosting meetings, doing education, and doing branding. And that's what we're doing here today. So again, this is a two-part series. So this is sales meeting number 1. This is a pre-recorded workshop that we did last year, and we're sharing it with you free, and we're sharing it with you live. My name is Rob Souza with the digital marketing director with the Advisor Marketing Hub. We're going to jump right in because this one is about a half hour. So we want to jump in, make sure you get a chance to get all of this episode, or part 2 episode. And here we go. All right.
Welcome to part 2 of the 3-part series, the Virtual Advisor Masterclass. My name is Rob Souza, and we're going to be talking about appointment number 1. And in appointment or meeting number 1, here's the agenda that we're going to go over for the day. First, perfect your process. If you can come up with a process that is repeatable and can convert a higher percentage of your prospects into clients, you're going to have a much more significant success, but it also should be transferable to other advisors within your organization. It needs to not be personality based. It needs to be process based. Number 2, develop a financial questionnaire so that you can get the information that you need before the meeting starts, so that you can focus on them and learning about them, their families values, their goals, instead of trying to collect data and numbers. 3, the art of asking questions. This allows you to control the conversation and make sure that the conversation goes in the direction that you want and you're able to gather the information you need. Number 4, this is where the rubber meets the road, and that's getting started. Getting started means, how do I start that meeting and build engagement from the very beginning of that meeting? We'll talk about that, but we'll get into those recommended questions that you should be asking in order to direct the conversation and extract the information you need. 6, making sure you set expectations so that they understand what are they going to get out of this process, what can they expect from you, and is this worth their time? Does this solve their problems? They want to know, need to know what to expect from your unique process. And then finally, how to wrap up that meeting. Make sure that you have them fully bought into the process and they've given you permission to move forward. And then how you go ahead and implement the process of moving forward into that next meeting, of which hopefully you'll be able to soft close in the the next meeting. All right, so let's jump right in. We're going to be talking about how to perfect your process. And so part of that, I know we've talked about preparing for the appointment, but here's some setup that I wanted to add to that process. 1, make sure that you set the expectation clearly before the meeting starts. Now, my recommendation, and I know my mentor's recommendation, Jason Jenkins, it's always, even though it's virtual, send an appointment package ahead of time. It's something tangible, it's physical, something that sits on the counter or on their office desk that's going to remind them. It should include a cover letter that reminds them of their appointment, how to log on to their appointment, and then also, and more importantly, it should include the financial questionnaire. Although you've given it to them in advance, it's including another copy just in case they misplaced it, to have a physical copy already printed out in their hands. You're making it as easy as possible for them to open that packet, grab a pen, start filling it out. So make sure you provide them an additional copy of the financial questionnaire, making this process easy as possible and talking about the importance of that financial questionnaire. If you'd like a copy of our packet that we send out at the end of this masterclass, I'll give you contact information at which you can reach out and I can give you a sample. And then number 2, phone call reminder. Make sure that you or someone in your office reaches out to them 24 hours in advance. And why? Because you can remind them of the importance of the questionnaire, because if we can get the financial data ahead of time, then we can focus on their specific story, their family, the family details, goals, and concerns. Then finally, ask them in that package they receive, ask them to check in early. Now, it's best if you can do it with a third-party employee, where just like if you go to a virtual doctor's meeting, you'll check in with the nurse, they make sure they take care of payment and what other medications you may be on. Have them log in early with a separate staff member who's going to make sure they collect the questionnaire and check their technology, make sure that their microphone, their camera, that they can log into Zoom. If they can't, what phone number can they call to get help to log in? All of that's very, very important at setting up a virtual advisor meeting. And remember, you only have one chance at a first impression. That's why we send these packets out. And it sets us apart from everyone else in the industry, because so few people do it, that it will make an impression on them. All right, so once we've done that, now we've set ourselves up for success. And let's, before we begin, talk about that financial questionnaire really quickly. As I have a copy of the financial questionnaire here, you also can, at the end of today's workshop masterclass, you can ask for a copy of that. I'd be happy to send you a sample copy. Now, of course, you want it to list the information, the basic information that you and your office needs, and different offices will want different information, but keep it high level. Don't ask for account numbers, driver license, social security numbers. Private information will be a deterrent to them filling out this information for you. Okay, now hopefully you've had a chance to review all of that prior to the first meeting, because it will give you a huge head start to the meeting, and it will show that you've taken interest and that it was worth their time to fill out that questionnaire because you spent time reviewing it before you got online. Okay, so this is probably the most important slide in all of today's presentation, and that's the art of asking questions. Because if you can ask questions and get them to give you answers, especially the answers that you want, then you can help them guide the conversation, or at least make them think they're guiding the conversation by the answers that they provide. But the art of asking the right question at the right moment to get what you're really wanting out of the conversation really is a process that you need to practice. And we're going to talk about that, and you'll have to improve over time. But the basic formula is, if you can create a connection based on a common interest or life experience, it will develop trust. The more trust that you develop, the more honest they will be with you. And the more honest they are in this meeting, the more clarity you will have about their values, their fears, their goals. And if you have absolute clarity on those issues, then you'll be able to create the prospect's financial strategy that absolutely aligns with their family values and dramatically will increase your conversion rate into turning them into clients. Okay, getting started. Again, we've talked about leading with questions, and this is the skill that I think every advisor absolutely needs to learn. But here's an example of how we would suggest to our advisors opening up the first appointment. So particular couple, and again, if it is a couple, I would, in your welcome packet, I would make sure, or the appointment packet that you send out, make sure that you encourage both spouses to be on that call, and you've got to talk about the importance of having them both there. So let's say that we got both of them there, and then we would start out with something like this. Brian and Kelsey, it's good to see you again. I want to thank you for taking the time to complete the financial questionnaire. This will allow us to get the most out of our time today. But before we get started, I'd like to know what is the most important issue that you want to address today? But make sure that you get the answer from each individual, each spouse. Allow them the time to get what you think is a genuine answer to that question to see if they are on the same page, because often they're not. So, and then you can wrap that kind of intro up with specifically, what would you like to accomplish in the meeting today? One is talking about a concern. The next and final question in the intro really is, what do you want to accomplish today? And again, it gives them the opportunity for them to share what's up top of their awareness of what it is they're trying to get out of today. And of course, if you've set the meeting up properly with the proper expectations, you'll get an answer that is consistent with what they put in the form that they filled out in advance, the questionnaire. And if it matches, you know you're on track, going the right direction. All right, now as you transition it into the rest of the meeting, here's what we call a kind of a connector question. And you get those answers from the intro, and then you're making a statement. As promised at the workshop, I'm here to learn more about your family, your family's specific needs, and the answer to the questions that you may have with solutions that represent your family's values and goals. The reason we make this statement is because in a group webinar, we can't give specific answers for every single family on the call because everybody's needs are different. We know that. It's the reason for the call. We're affirming that now, and we're making sure that they understand that this call is going to be about you. And then you're asking for permission if that's okay. How does that sound to the both of you? 99% of the time, if you set this up correctly, you'll get a head nod and an agreement. Yeah, that's great. Okay, let's move forward. If you don't get that, oh, I just want to get down to the basics. Can you just do the plan for me? And let's just get down to the numbers. Well, then you have to make a decision as a company, as an advisor. Do you want to work with people who aren't willing to be vulnerable to allow us to understand better where they're at in their lives and their concerns and their fears and their goals? Because you can say, here at the AFI group, this important value to us. And we don't produce financial plans until we learn the unique needs of each individual family. Hopefully, if you've done this right, then they'll be in agreement with you. That's how important it has been and how transformative it has been for our advisors on our team when they clearly understand that. So let's start with connection and give you some sample questions about connection. So start out with, and again, these are samples, so you can choose from them, or you can use them all depending on how much time you have, and depending on how the answer, you'll get better and better at choosing on the fly which particular question will give you the information that you're looking for. First, I see that you're currently living in, that means you paid attention to the questionnaire. You don't have to ask it again because you already know. And then you ask, are you originally from there? What this does is allow them to give you hopefully another city. And between the two cities, you hopefully can connect with them in some sort of similar experience. If you don't live or are familiar with either city, well, then you may have to rely back on maybe previous clients. Maybe a family member lives in one of those cities, but what you're trying to do is express that, oh yeah, my sister lives in that city, and her favorite restaurant was, and you, oh yeah, I know that restaurant too. We've been there before. You're trying to, again, create common life experiences and a connection based on their story. Okay. So next, what would you do, or what do you or did you do for a living? Again, this is asking somebody, just like when you're networking in a group, hey, what do you do for a living? It's an opening question that most of us ask, and allows you, again, to connect with them. Either you understand, know of a family member or of a client who you're friends with, that you can share some sort of connection, that you understand their career. So again, take personal interest in their story. That's what creates connection. 3, what do you like to do in your free time? So most of us can identify with this question on some level or another, and again, allows you to help them share when they express the favorite thing that they enjoy doing on weekends, and you let them talk about that and ask additional questions that show them that you're interested in learning more, again, that'll create connection. The next one, what is the number one activity you'd want to do in retirement? Now, here's where you're transitioning into dream casting, and it's your job to cast that vision of, if you could do anything you wanted in retirement, what would it be? And if they give you some, oh, well, watch my favorite TV show, you got to dig deep and encourage them to give you more than that, because you know that there's so much more to what they dream of. A lot of people will shut that down because they want to be pragmatic or anticipate the worst. So get them to not be a pessimist, try and encourage them to be an optimist and share with you a vulnerable dream about what they'd like to see if it was possible. And then 5, tell me about your family. Do you have grown children, grandchildren, nieces and nephews? I think this is absolutely necessary. Most of you probably already do it, but you want to have them express how they feel about their family members. You'd be surprised. We think that they're all going to have great, warm feelings about their family members, but some don't. Some want nothing to do with family members, and they're like, I want to make sure I spend every last dollar I have before I die so that they get nothing, which sometimes surprises me. But now that we've been doing this for so long and asking this question, you won't be surprised. Recommended questions to build trust. So if you've done the connection part correctly, this should be easy. Here's a question you can start with. Do you have any specific financial concerns for any of your family members? Because now you're talking about vulnerabilities. I just mentioned it before. They may have a family member they want to get nothing. They may have a family member with special needs that they want to get everything. And so it's important. They may have a parent who may outlive them, and they're concerned that they are their only fallback and provider for their long-term financial needs. So this is really an important question for you to shape that financial plan. Next, is there anyone other than your family that you're financially concerned for? Oftentimes, like in my particular case, my best friend at age 52 was diagnosed with pancreatic cancer. His kids were in elementary school, and he was extremely concerned about helping get them getting through college and marriage and into adulthood. And that was his greatest concern. My wife and I became their godparents, and we agreed that we would make sure that we were always there for them the way that he would be there for them. But those are vulnerable stories that if you can get to and get them to share with you, now you know that you're building trust. Now you know that they're willing to be honest with you. And it's a great opportunity to give them a chance to do that. Not everybody's going to be in that particular circumstance. There's other questions you can ask. Do you currently support any nonprofits, or do you plan to? This is a opportunity for them to share that maybe they give to faith-based organizations or organizations that are outside this country that providing for underprivileged across the world. They get a chance to share the value of where they want their money to go and who they want to support. So again, the more that they answer these questions tells you that you did a good job in the connection step of asking questions. And finally, on the trust side of things, it's a great question to finish with. Have you ever received an inheritance or been awarded any type of settlement? And this is important. Most people won't admit it. They don't put it on financial documents because they don't want, again, the pessimism in them doesn't want to rely or count on any sort of additional funding for their retirement. And so they tend to leave it out. And it's important. If they are willing to admit it to you, you know you've done a great job establishing trust. So if you've done that, then we can move on to the fact that they're going to start being honest about their values and their fears, which is kind of the clarity that we need to wrap up the conversation. So we begin talking or asking questions to get them to give us feedback. I'd start with a question like, what would you say is the best financial decision you've ever made? And most of us can see past the answer to this question. It does tell us about a lot about how they think and how they feel. And depending on, hopefully at this point in time, they'll tell you exactly, honestly, how they feel about this particular question. And then to where have you learned the most about saving and investing? So this will give you a backdrop to where their opinion is coming from or their feelings are coming from about certain investments. They may have a parent who lost everything because of a variable life insurance product in the 90s that just went upside down, and they got taxed to death and had to sell their home. And so when they share a story like that with you, it may not be a good idea to lead their financial plan with any sort of cash value permanent life insurance. Just saying, it may be part of the plan down the road. It just may not be a good place to start with what they've just shared with you. All right. Another question. What are some of your financial goals? Now, we mark this as a must ask. Now, of course, they've already answered this in the questionnaire that they turned in. So here's a chance to see if you've done your job correctly, because if they answer consistent with what they put in the questionnaire, then it tells you something about their honesty and vulnerability. If they give you more information or something different from the questionnaire, then that tells you that you brought something deeper out of them through the process of asking questions. And good for you, because you're going to have a more accurate and authentic financial plan that you put together for them. Another must ask is, what are some of your financial concerns and or challenges? Let's see if they answer this the same way as the questionnaire, and that will tell you if you've brought up any further concerns or challenges based on the questions that you've had for them during this time that you guys have had together. Final must ask question. What do you want or expect out of the partnership with a financial advisor? Now, this is a tough one to ask because it's very poignant. And if they hesitate to answer this question, it tells you that maybe you haven't done a good enough job on the front end connecting and trust for them to be vulnerable. Some will outright tell you, and often this brings up that they've had a bad experience with a financial advisor, or they will confess to you what pieces are missing from an existing financial advisor that they have, and allows you to help them self-identify what's missing and what you can provide them. All right, now we should be to a point of clarity, but we need to confirm that clarity, because oftentimes we think we're right and sometimes we're wrong, and that will lower our conversion rate. So when we look at clarity, it looks like we've got these in the wrong order, but we're going to put them all up. Number one, ask for permission that you've got it right. So for clarification, just to make sure I understand you correctly, am I correct that you say that you, and then list what you think are their greatest family values, their most important concerns, and their ultimate goal with the process of meeting with you? And if you can put that in one sentence and get agreement with them, then you have done a successful job at going through, leading them through this process, and you nailed it, that you authentically understand what their true purpose is for meeting with you. And if you can address that concern, there's a high probability they're going to become a client. And then you can kind of take it to the next step and get some commitment from them, and give them permission based on what you shared with me today. I believe we can help you. You seem to be an ideal fit for our firm because you are who we serve. And then again, you are who we serve. Well, we serve families who have your values, your concerns, and your goals. You can repeat them to make sure you've got it correct. And if they're in agreement and these are the type of people you serve, then they know they're in the right place, and they know that you understand them, and you have compassion, and that you also have solutions. And then 3, to get the buy-in, this is where you set up appointment number 2. This is extremely important. This is the pullback, because when salesmen or advisors press in for the sale, guess what happens? People press back, because it's our natural human nature to be defensive and put walls up when somebody presses in on us. But the way to avoid that is for you to fall back, and then they fall back. And that's number 3, where you say, but you know what? I'm not 100% sure. So here's what I'd like to do next. In order to be certain, I need to run a financial diagnostics. Now, this could be your own unique process. It doesn't matter what that diagnostics really entails. Each person, each advisor is going to be something uniquely different, and should be. So set expectations and make sure that you walk them through your proprietary process, whatever that diagnostics is. Number 1, this is an example, just explaining process. Our proprietary process allows us to take your information and stress test it in a way that most people would never be able to see. It's intelligent, factual, and it's easy to understand. Most importantly, it will help us identify what we call unnecessary risks inside your financial life. And that's what we do here at the AFI group, or whatever the name of your company is. Whatever it is, the outcome, you can replace them in the statement. Point being is that it's intelligent, factual, and easy to understand. So make it simple, high level, easy to understand. And it's similar to what I always give to our prospects, is the analogy of going to the doctor. If the doctor gives you 5 minutes and you say, oh, I got shoulder pain, my shoulder hurts every time I lift my elbow, and the doctor says, okay, you know what? I'm going to write a prescription for orthopedic surgery. We'll schedule it for next Thursday. Would you trust the process? Obviously not. Because what people want is they want confirmation. They want not just a prognosis, not just a diagnosis. They want testing. And the stress test is testing. It's just like going and, no, let's make sure that we know that the problem really is the problem, because if we don't get to the real problem, we can't come up with a real solution. So this process of a proprietary process of testing, coming up with the real problem, will help us develop a real solution. All right. And the last one, well, see if I have another one. I have another one that was hidden there. Show them a sample of what they can expect. So print off the highlight sheets. I'm talking about high level, 1 to 3 pages maximum summary sheet that shows an example of another family, so that they understand this is exactly what they'll get at the end of their next appointment. Again, it's about setting expectations and showing your process. And then 4, this is a statement that we would make. And very, very important, because here is where you're setting up the expectation of a decision you're asking them to make right now. If our unique process, whatever it is, can show you exactly how we can address your concerns, are you open to allowing me to implement this plan for you? Because if not, normally we charge like $1,500, $2,000 for this plan. And we don't want to move forward and do all this work if you have no intention of using us to implement the plan for you. Now, I have no problem. If you have a financial advisor that you trust and who's fully on top of all of these things, and you just want this as a confirmation you're on the right track, then we can create an agreement and charge you the $1,500, and just let me know now before we get any further into this. But if you're saying that you want us to develop a plan that hasn't been developed for you, then will you allow us to implement the plan for you? If you get a head nod, a yes, of course, you've already gotten permission. Now, as long as you know what the real problem is and come up with a real solution that is in line with their values, you've already got permission. So by the time you've finished meeting number 1, you have permission to start printing applications and account setup paperwork in preparation for meeting number 2, if you're confident that you've identified the real problem with a real solution that is in line with their values. Absolutely essential step of the process. You do this, I guarantee you're going to double your conversions. All right, so now it comes to meeting wrap up. We've gotten their permission. We've gotten their buy-in. They know our process. So how do we wrap this meeting up? 1, make sure you schedule the next appointment. I don't care what they say. I don't care if they say, I don't have my calendar. Then you say, okay, that's okay. Let's just pick a random date anyways. And then you can reschedule it as soon as you get your calendar. Because if we don't get you on the calendar now, then I'll lose track. You may lose your place in line, and we don't want that to happen. So let's just random pick a date, and then you can go home and reschedule it. And then 2, you don't want enough time in between where they begin asking other people questions, doing research online, and starting to doubt the process. And then set the expectation. Make sure they understand. Let's make the earliest possible appointment. You can reschedule if you need to, but let them know how long is the meeting going to be, what are the deliverables. You've already shown them the plan that you're going to provide them and an example of it, and then what decisions will be made during that meeting. And so they're already prepared for it. There are no surprises. Then I encourage you to give them homework. This is a challenge to see how much they're buying into the process. Give them a video to watch, a movie. It's maybe a documentary movie, that an article, a book. It doesn't matter. It's just a way of challenging and keeping their attention where you want it to be. And then I encourage you to give them a new pad of paper with your logo on it, with a pen, and ask them to write down any question that crosses their mind between now and when we meet next, so that you can answer every single one of those questions or doubts or concerns that they may have in between the first appointment and the second appointment. If you do this right, you'll get them successfully, 99% successfully into that second appointment, and they're ready to go. And then finally, communicate your expectations about your schedule. Let them know that you're trying to fit as many families in on your schedule as possible, because you're trying to help as many families. And the demand is enormous, whether it's for you specifically or for the industry in general. Families need your help. And so you're trying to reserve your time for those who are most open to wanting and receiving your help. And so you let them know that and say, if for any reason you cannot make this appointment and you need to reschedule, please give me 24 hours of notice so I can invite another family to take your place. And that helps them respect your calendar, respect your time, and it, again, sets the expectation. Okay, so that's pretty much it. That's the process. And if you follow it correctly, it will take you some time to perfect the process. You'll learn when you get to the end of the process, if you didn't land where you wanted to, you can go back and ask yourself, okay, do I need to improve my connection? Do I need to improve the trust level? What should I ask different questions? And so it's important for you to find some sort of mentor or another advisor in your office. And in the military, we call it after action reports, and go through and see what went wrong and see what you can do in comparison to what we just laid out. What did you miss? Did you not ask the right question? Did you misjudge a particular answer? And then the very next appointment, you'll be more prepared and you'll have a higher conversion rate. I look forward to catching up with you in our part 3 of the 3-part series next.
All right, well, thanks for joining us for this week's Digital Advisor Weekly Live. Hope that was valuable for you. Of course, if you would like a copy of all 3 parts of this series, feel free to either comment or reach out to us. You can email rob@amhsupport.com. Otherwise, we'll see you next week, Wednesdays, 8 a.m. Pacific. You guys have a fantastic week.